Shifting focus from Chandrayaan to yet another big move by Bharat. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is attending the 15th BRICS Summit in Joburg. Ahead of his departure, Prime Minister said the BRICS has become a platform for discussing the challenges faced by the global South. Now, why is India very clearly wanting to champion the voice of the global South? And the moment India has increased the amplification, other nations have jumped onto it too. One, it has the political will to lead the global South. Secondly, the rise in stature as far as the international sphere is concerned, prominent position in international politics, because the economic rise of Bharat as a nation over the last, at least in the last decade, plays a role in mitigating global crisis situations, serves as a bridge between the North and the South. And this is something that India has actively worked on, and it's also played a critical role in providing vaccines during the pandemic. When other nations shunned the lesser nations, the smaller nations, the global South, India reached out. More than 6.5 crore vaccines were given, ladies and gentlemen. 650 million plus vaccines were given. Significant advancement in digital payments like UPI. We're partnering with more than 50 nations to help them adopt this entire digital infrastructure. Economic prospects in improvement in social indicators, making significant advances in the fight against terrorism, and last but not the least, a powerful counterbalance to one of the hegemonic rises or hegemonic entities in this region, that is the East, if you were to see, that is China. There are many nations that have also felt the brunt or been burnt by deciding or trying to remain only dependent on China as a source. But now everybody is looking at China plus one or anywhere but China. So these are thought processes. But in this entire global game, the hegemonistic nations which continue to hold the veto in the UN Security Council, India has said that it will use BRICS to add on many other nations. The expansion of BRICS is also there. Ashok K Kantha, the former Indian ambassador to China, is with us. Einar Tangen, political affairs commentator, also with us. Namaste. Thank you very much for your time and your patience. We are expecting the Prime Minister to also speak 10 minutes, and he'll be followed by President Xi Jinping. But Ambassador Kantha, I wanted to understand what's changed in the last decade and a half as far as India is concerned. Has India always championed the cause of the global South, or is this something that we have started building now? And the expansion, 20 nations want to be part of BRICS. And this is not even an organized entity. It was a coinage that was made by an agency, news agency, and then it became an acronym for these nations, BRIC to BRICS, when South Africa got added. So today, where are we?
First thing which has happened, that the nature of BRICS had changed. The international environment in which BRICS operates had changed. Our focus on concerns of global South has been there all along. In fact, even during the period we're active in online movement, that was a major preoccupation for us. So that hasn't changed. But you will recall that when BRIC was set up in 2006, even earlier when Jim O'Neill of Goldman Sachs came up with this acronym, there was this assessment that these 4 countries will become dominant economies come 2050. Later, South Africa joined. That hasn't quite panned out. The economic trajectory of some of the member countries hasn't quite kept pace with potential. But from our side, we have tried to keep the focus on economic issues. We supported setting up of a new development bank or BRICS Bank, which was in fact an initiative mooted by India, though it's now headquartered in Shanghai. We also supported, contingent reserve arrangements. Focus was primarily of concern of developing and emerging economies. Today, it's changing somewhat. China in particular wishes to give a more geopolitical orientation to BRICS. If you look at the speech delivered by President Xi Jinping at the virtual summit hosted by China last year, there was a barely veiled attack on US-led Western countries, criticism of bloc politics, and seeking BRICS countries to support each other's core interests. Though that doesn't quite gel in with China's behavior on some other issues, including what's happening along the borders. He sought support for China's global security initiative, which again has a very strong geopolitical agenda. So I think one important theme that we need to pursue, what is going to be character of BRICS down the road. From our side, I think we should continue to ensure that the original perspective of pursuing interests of emerging developing economies is kept in mind, and it doesn't get sucked into great power rivalry as a sort of instrument of Chinese foreign policy.
Right.
That's one. Coming to the issue of expansion of BRICS, this is something we need to move ahead with a degree of caution. India has not opposed expansion. At the same time, would like any such new members to come on board through a very clear process of norms and parameters which need to be defined. Equally important, we must ensure that BRICS as an institution is consolidated. And before we start adding too many new members. For instance, the issue of representation of developing countries in UN Security Council. We expect China and Russia to support three other member countries of BRICS in terms of aspirations to join the UN Security Council. So I think we have to maintain focus on those issues rather than getting excessively engaged on the issue of expansion at this stage.
Right. So 20 nations have shown their willingness, but you're saying within these 5 member nations, let the 2 ones who have got a permanent seat in the UN Security Council help the other 3 get in there. Einar Tangen, let me just get in Mr. Einar Tangen. Einar Tangen, how would you look at BRICS, or how does China actually view BRICS? Because one common agenda between nations, despite strategic differences, is that all the nations, this is a grouping which wants to battle Western hegemony. President Putin has spoken about it. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken about it. President Xi Jinping has spoken about it, that we need to break the hegemonistic shackles. Neo-colonialism has to be broken up.
Yeah, the unipolar world is gone. I mean, BRICS is a testament to the fact that it is a multipolar world. The question is, how do countries relate to each other? Before, for instance, you needed to know about your country, maybe a few neighbors, but then only the U.S. Today, with the complex trade relations, countries have to know other countries and respect them. So China has been putting forward this idea of civilization, security, and development initiatives, basically aspirational, not saying that anybody can impose anything, not saying that these are the only things that can be discussed, simply that here are middle power countries who are now shouldering the responsibility of trying to guide the world in the absence of the G7 and their inability to come forward, even to keep promises. $100 billion a year that was supposed to go to climate change has not materialized, only 1/10 of it. And much of that money has gone to companies that seem very much connected to the first world. So at this juncture, these 5 nations have a huge responsibility, but they cannot let the G7 countries who profited from the global South through colonialism off the hook. I think that's the desire of many G7 countries. They can just say, well, if you have problems, go to BRICS, let them solve it. The fact is, the majority of wealth is in these countries, and they are the ones responsible for so many of the actions. So I think this is a consensus point among the 5 countries that they have to have a more global perspective.
But what is China's point of view? Would China want to work with the BRICS nations closely, try and sort out issues with these nations? Because all the nations which are part of BRICS also have a huge engagement with the Western powers, Ambassador Kantha. So how do you balance this, and where does India work this? Because India is engaging very strongly with the United States. Our relationships perhaps are the strongest ever. In the meantime, we continue to engage with Russia, and we are looking forward to this bilateral that could happen post Galwan on the sidelines of BRICS between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping.
I know you rightly pointed out that India has very important our relationship with the USA and other Western countries. And we are very clear that we would not like BRICS to be hijacked, to become a platform for bashing the West. That will be not in our interest. We are very clear about it. So agenda of BRICS has to be defined very clearly. The nature of BRICS should not be changed to become a geopolitical instrument. There are concerns which are shared. We have, for instance, similar positions on the issue of climate action or food security or energy security. These are issues where we can work together. We can work together on restructuring of debt for developing countries, including our neighborhood in Sri Lanka, for instance. I think we need to focus on these practical priorities. We need to further reinforce New Development Bank, which has done quite well during the years it has been around. But its resource base needs to be reinforced further, and we can likewise find practical initiatives which will provide relevance to BRICS. Otherwise, BRICS will be seen as an organization, chasing an acronym. It shouldn't be like that.
No, but Mr. Tangen, do you see a change in the position of China, of the CCP? Is there going to be some level of dialing it down with India in terms of adversarial positions and engaging more as a friendly neighbor and equal partner, given the economic rise of India?
Well, I don't think the economic rise of India is the issue or any of the things that you've talked about. China's, from its perspective, has held its hand open. They see it differently. They see India being the aggressor. Both sides do. There's no point going over that. The issue is, how do you go forward and how do countries work together? China has proposed a Westphalian peace, e.g., what goes on in your country is your business. What goes on in their country is theirs. Rather than trying to fight ideological wars, they suggest that people engage in peaceful development, that countries be secure, and that there has to be a deep respect for the very different civilizations that have existed and are existing throughout the world. In terms of how China will deal with India, let's hope that this bilateral, which appears like it's going to happen, will be the first of many breakthrough points, which will allow these two Asian giants to get along, not govern each other, simply have a consensus on how they can work together. Remember, the BRICS represents a consensus entity. It is unlike the UN, which is much more of a corporatism. This idea that if you have the majority, you make the rules.
Yes.
This is no longer the way it works.
But Ambassador Kantha, it's the same BRICS nations, the two nations who have still not allowed a permanent seat for its partners. So
exactly,
it's the left hand says something, the right hand does something else.
It's time that our partner countries in BRICS should walk the talk. When we talk about respecting each other's core interests, it should also translate into respecting each other's aspirations. And there is a clear expectation on part of India, Brazil and South Africa that China and Russia will be supportive of India's our membership of UN Security Council, restructured Security Council. That's not happening. So I think while we don't bring our bilateral differences with China into plurilateral arrangements like BRICS or SCO, you would have seen that we have gone ahead with our engagement with these groupings very proactively, despite very serious differences on the bilateral track with China. But the fact remains that at some point of time, difficulties in our relations with China do seep into our collaboration with China in multilateral platforms as well.
Right, Ambassador Kantha and Einar Tangen, thank you very, very much. We're standing by for Prime Minister Narendra Modi's address at the BRICS Summit. that should come forth in a short while from now. He's also supposed to engage with the Indian diaspora. But quickly moving on, ladies.